1, 2, 3. Jim Bobaloo Bob a wop bum boom. It's the 19th episode, Jim. The 19th episode of the cruise. You take the news, you put it with my name, that's Craig, and the news, you put them together, that makes cruise. You add Jim Grant, it remains cruise, but we're going to find out what this week of madness in the year 2020, the worst year of our lives, is all about through the man, through the font, through the Mr. Jim Grant.
Thank you very much, Mr. Campbell. Coming up on episode 19 of today's cruise, we're going to be looking at government advice saying lovers should use glory holes to have sex during the pandemic. Doctors behind the viral COVID-19 misinformation video. We're going to talk about that very briefly, and we're going to talk about it even more briefly why we won't be talking about it less briefly. But that'll make sense as you listen.
I hope.
Also going to be looking at some of the problems with the false positives on the COVID tests, more on Swedish doctors saying masks and lockdowns be useless, the possibility that lockdowns may have taken some lives as well as saving them as well. Looking at some of the conspiracy theorists that happen to be topless waitresses, raunchy strippers that attend swingers parties, and good news for me, but bad news for Mr. Campbell. Apparently, people 6 feet or over have double the risk of coronavirus. Apparently,
right. All stacking up for me. Wow.
Yeah, I'm good. I just under the radar, no problem there. Isn't it such a picky virus and who it attacks?
Yeah. Temperamental little virus, yes.
We'll be looking at that as well. And we've got the cube story was a big hit on episode 18. So we're going to be, the cube hit was the cube story about the alien cube in the sun. That a lot of people like listening to that, the feedback. So I'll give you some feedback that we've got from listeners on that. So we're going to go down that hole again, and it's the same Express. I don't know whether there's a guy there that's really keen on aliens or something like that, but apparently
likes the sound of our voices, maybe.
I don't know, maybe, but there's the Express have found someone that seems to have found a 20-foot alien in Antarctica near an underground base. So, there you go.
Speaking of stacking up,
we'll look at whether that's nonsense or who knows what it is. We'll just read the articles and you can make it up.
I'll let you decide.
Yeah, let everyone decide. You'll get mine and Craig's views on things as ever. We're moving on to our first article here today. This is from the Mirror, Craig. This is by Lorraine King. This is by on the 22nd of July. We're recording this on Monday, the 3rd of August, by the way.
It is, yes. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that.
So this is from the Mirror. Lovers should use glory holes to have sex during pandemic, says official advice. Sticking to social distancing guidelines.
Nothing says love like a glory hole, Jim. Valentine's Day for me, it's been the go-to. It's a special night, honey. Get on the other side of the fence.
So it will be literally impossible during sexual intercourse. So health officials have revealed different ways of doing so while reducing the risk of contracting the coronavirus. So health officials,
don't fuck a papaya. That's got to be on the list. Don't rub your papaya on the fence you intend on fucking through.
Especially not in Tanzania. That's where the president found that those things tested positive for coronavirus, didn't he?
Yes.
And perhaps that was just
another memorable cruise episode.
Yeah. Health officials have suggested a novel way for lovers to have sex, but limit the amount of physical contact they have during the coronavirus pandemic. Sticking to social, that might not be the only thing that's sticking, that wall. To social distancing guidelines is literally impossible during sex. Is it really? So health officials have revealed ways of doing so while reducing the risk of contracting or passing on COVID-19. While the virus has been found in semen and feces, it is not yet clear if coronavirus can be transmitted through sex. The BC Centre for Disease Control in Canada Hey, your home place. They could have got you in for the
Yeah,
study
it's
break.
British Columbia. I wasn't proud upon hearing this information reach a wider audience, Jim. You can imagine less so now immortalizing it in our show. But yeah, it's a Canadian-born, to a degree, anybody's guess. But British Columbia specifically is the health body that's put this out as advice. It's just absurdist. It's absurdist. But don't stop reading for the benefit of my pride.
The BC Centre for Disease Control in Canada has suggested lovers use glory holes as a way of intercourse with minimum physical contact. A
Wow.
glory hole, for I'm reading the description from the Mirror here, for
All
any
right.
of our listeners that don't know what one is.
Yeah.
I'm sure none of them know what it is. They're all
I'll
good,
bet.
good, good, good citizens listening to the Cruise podcast.
Catholic girls, their little white dresses. Listen to the whole album.
A glory hole is a hole cut into a wall that's only large enough for a penis to slip through, which means lovers can be in two separate rooms while having sex.
Yeah,
Health officials are warning people if they have any symptoms of COVID-19,
yeah,
have been in contact with someone who has the virus, or
yeah.
has been exposed to it, or if they have been told to self isolate, then they should refrain from sex. Using condoms, lubricant, and dental dams can help reduce the risks of contracting the virus during sex. I don't know what a dental dam is. Is that some
It's
kind of one of the the
it's like
mouth?
it's a mouth barrier, Jim. It's so
Oh,
hideous. It's not
those
even.
sort of things.
It's like when you go to Subway and the Subway artist there makes your sandwich with those disposable plastic gloves on, and then takes them off before they type into the more, I guess, widely infected till area. Well, you first of all you whisper your sweet nothings and you put on her favorite music, and all this is like an optimal experience, Jim. Perhaps a pre-date gift. You're nice to them for a period of hours, and then afterwards, maybe if they're a bit drowsy, could help. Give them a couple of shots, or again, more sweet nothings, or try and sing "The Lady in Red" to them. Perhaps has worked for me in the past. But once you get them really heated up, and I suppose in today's day and age, you request officially, may I push my face against your vagina? And then she, if all things are going well, Jim, she would oblige by saying, by all means, push your face onto my thing. And then you would put a plastic wrapper on your face, Jim, like a picture Hannibal Lecter type situation. You go from yeah, sure, throw in some sound effects, probably help the whole situation out. You would want to, after you've engaged or got a committal from her to engage you congress with your face and their vagina, then you stick this sandwich bag over your head, and you basically lick through the plastic barrier, and presumably like a screensaver on your phone, or a screen protector, depending on the strength of the bag, and its transferability of heat, I guess, if you're trying to be in some way sensual. You would then just like push against what feels like another person. While you're doing this, you might want to put some mittens on and feel her tits, if you're like really feeling like getting into the whole dystopia of the situation. You could, and if you're having trouble concentrating, you might want to try like pulling out a jackknife and stabbing yourself in the buttock or something, to really enhance the lack of sexual feeling that you're obviously committing to.
And we know that, Craig, following along your thought process, that
Yeah,
loud noises can transmit the virus. So perhaps if she were to text you the feedback on whether you've got the right spot or not,
might
rather than
startle the
actually
virus.
communicate, yeah,
Yeah.
that would help to
Well,
stop the spread of the virus as well.
Yeah, well, while we're on that topic, once you've received that text, if you feel like she's really, really enjoying you sandwich bagging the shit out of her uglies, you could suggest that you pop out into the backyard and you can pound her through the fence and maybe continually yell each other's names so you know that it's actually the person who you've um, introduced to your body carnally in that fashion.
Speaking from experience, though, if you are going to do a glory hole in a fence, you want to get some sandpaper around the edge of the wood before you cock through. Okay, splinters can be a massive problem. So, but
And don't put the hole too high.
definitely not for me.
Yeah,
Definitely, I
yeah,
mean, I've learned from
yeah,
that
or
experience.
too low, Jim. I mean, it's a real fraught thing when you're pounding through I hear.
I use a chair. Get that out. So, but in addition, they are recommending that lovers can try wearing a mask,
Yeah,
refraining from kissing. Oh, it's
right.
just every
So
every
romantic.
every lady's romantic dream, isn't it? Using a condom, choose sexual positions that limit face-to-face contact. Oh, it's just
Wow,
and
wow.
wash their entire body with soap and water beforehand as other ways of minimizing any risk. It sounds like someone with OCD has decided to go to a brothel, isn't it? Like, I'm going to do
It
it.
is that way, isn't it? It's just utterly grim, Jim. It's grim that the government's involved in your bedroom to begin with. It's grim that they have a presumption that they should be, or that that's in any way their place to be. But to see the obtuseness of the ideas that they've come up with just shows maybe it's been taken over by AI already. Maybe the entire department's just been like roboticized to the degree that this is what they've put out, and a human being didn't get a chance to look at it before they, you know, then the human should go fuck through a hole in a fence, making sure not to kiss throughout. It's just like it's utterly insane, Jim. But it's like every other aspect of this. You and I, it's why we're talking to each other, because it's so insane that you need to have an outlet for it. You need to have the ability to speak to a fellow human being about it, because it needs that confirmation that we're all like, can we wink at each other enough to know this is totally insane, right? Oh yeah. Oh yes, indeed it is. I can confirm it's also insane to me.
So the BC Centre for Disease Control's website states use barriers like walls, e.g., glory holes, that
Yep.
allow for sexual contact but prevent close face-to-face contact. In New York, so it's not just Canada, health
Well,
officials hinted about using glory holes but,
no.
but did not name them specifically. New York City health officials hinted at using glory holes in a recent 3-page document without specifically naming them. A document says, be creative with sexual positions and physical barriers like walls that allow sensual contact while preventing close face-to-face contact.
Like show off to your friends by using a thick wall. You banged her through 8 inches of concrete. Well, not everyone can, but yeah, I felt up to it on Saturday. You got that going. Very odd.
So, more doctors' advice. Doctors behind viral COVID-19 and misinformation video met with Vice President Pence. A group of
Ooh,
doctors, this is by Yahoo News on the 29th of July,
they're
a group
good.
of doctors who participated in an event on the steps of the Supreme Court, a viral video which was taken down the next day by social media companies
Yeah,
for spreading disinformation about the
yeah.
coronavirus, met with Vice President Mike Pence, according to Jenny Beth Martin, co-founder of the Tea Party Patriots, an influential far-right group that organised the event. So
Yeah,
me and Craig are going to be careful on this article because we don't want to be taken down either. So all we are
yeah,
doing is we
yeah,
are sharing the official version, which includes the word disinformation and misinformation. So I
yeah,
see no reason why they would take us down. But it spurned me and Craig on to go and do a special on this whole video and a couple of other things that doctors have said
yeah,
on a new platform that is more open-minded to free speech. I
yeah.
think that's fair to say, and I think that's all I was going to say
Well
on
worded.
the matter.
Well
And
worded. Yeah,
yeah, and we'll go into that. We just wanted our listeners to know, yes, we are aware of this video, and myself and Mr. Campbell are going to play our cards close to our chest and then show you our entire hand on another platform, which has a, yeah. So we'll leave that article. So watch this space. We're going to get cracking on that within a couple of weeks. There's a lot of balls we need to juggle in the air on that one, but we're on it, listeners. We know it, and we're going to do something about it. But moving on. The problem of false positives from COVID-19 tests means UK is inflating its numbers and taking wrong decisions. This is the 27th of July. Rob Lyons. Rob Lyons is a UK journalist specialising in science, environmental and health issues. He is the author of Panic on a Plate, How Society Developed an Eating Disorder. And again, this is RT. So when 7 staff at a Scottish football club tested positive for coronavirus, alarm bells went off. But really alarming was when 6 of those resulted turned out to be wrong. Such inaccurate tests are exaggerating the problem. Last weekend, at very short notice, the UK reintroduced quarantine measures for people arriving from Spain, for those already in Spain or from those for whom it was too late to postpone their trip. Their decision is very inconvenient. For those who can't work at home when they return, it may mean missing out on wages for 2 weeks until they have to spend in isolation when they get back. But what if the apparent rise in cases has been exaggerated by seemingly small flaws with testing?
What if?
People can go on and read the whole thing. It's a long article for yourself, but we're giving them the idea that false positive exists and these tests are not as accurate as people, by any shape of the imagination. And there'll be more articles that we've got on that as well coming up. But what's your thoughts on that, Mr. Campbell?
Well, just it's just another indication, Jim. There's so many holes in the entire narrative, but picking any one aspect of it, just as the testing veracity, just opens up another wormhole of instability. And all the while, the policy, races along in the background, and more absurdities on the basis of not even deaths now. That it's now they're once again, not once again, fixated for the first time on cases. We've got all these things that you and I have seen over months, and I'm sure many other people have paid careful attention to similarly, where there's just nothing that can be trusted that comes out, and that doesn't mean that that the implemented policies on the back of the untrustworthy information won't race ahead seemingly on schedule. So it's quite a depressing time, I think. For me, it certainly is, Jim. I'm assuming you're the same way from our conversations, and other people I speak to variously feel the same way also. That it's we're in a time of great upheaval, I would describe it as. That tyranny is upon us. That free speech is being bludgeoned into a hole, and the march of the multinational, mainly pharma-based autocratic dictatorial process is upon us. That our social media platforms are being influenced by business and parts of business models, and that which is deemed to be permissible speech is entirely related to financial interests, and that's depressing. That's and that people are comfortably almost in any way going along with it is in its own way part of the depressing cycle that's terrifying and terrible about this entire event, Jim, from start to finish. That there's that frustrating bit of it, that all these things can't take place without water carriers for this tyranny. That people in compliance with unjust diktats of people who are proving themselves more and more to be what's the term, as a ruler, not when what's that expression, Jim? The term to be inadequate comes to mind, but that's not the expression I'm looking for. Not like unjust, but when illegitimate. The illegitimacy of the decisions of those in power and that people are still, feeling comfortable to go along with. And we're actually, if I can bring in, Jim, something that you probably know about, but some people might not be because it's not being covered in our mainstream press in certain aspects of the West, are the protests against the very things that we're talking about that have been taking place in Berlin and across Germany over the last week. That's not, being presented in our media. And
coming up on today's show.
Is it? I'll bet it is, because that's integral to this conversation. That even when people are rightly and justly speaking out against these things, they're doing so are not promoted by the exact same players that are preventing other voices reaching the ears of the public.
The phrase I'm going to use is always darkest before dawn. So,
okay. So you're still optimistic?
Oh, not about the platforms themselves. Facebook and YouTube will be shadows of themselves within 10
already
years.
Are, yes. Absolutely.
But here's what happens: controversy builds platforms, debate builds algorithms with all the comments and things like that. So here's what's going to happen: the interesting people are going to leave. And when you get the interesting people leaving and the content producers leaving because they don't want to be shackled, and especially the content producers that have slight controversy, no one wants to go and listen to some of the loonies on either side, like the extreme left or the extreme right. But if you've got some interesting controversy people who might appear, people like who got taken down this week for disinformation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
People want to hear that stuff, and when it's so obvious that it's being flattened down and silenced, the intelligent people who think for themselves move on to the platforms where they can hear this stuff. There'll be a monkey branching where they're on both platforms for a while because you get the majority of your friends and all that kind of stuff. So you get your quantity of people on your Facebook and your YouTube, but you get your quality interactions, your debate, your free speech, meeting people that you want to meet on the free speech platforms. And all that remains over the course of the next 10 years is the people that staying on Facebook en masse. I mean, I'm going to stay on there. Well, if I'm allowed, I'll stay on there to put out the cruise and everything like that.
Your food every once in a while.
But exactly. All that's going to be remaining is people virtue signaling to each other. I've liked your profile picture. Now I've changed mine. Please like mine in return. Here's the picture of my food. And here's a subject matter that is very quarantined. It's very safe. All the people that could debate or argue with me have moved over to other platforms. So here's a really safe subject that isn't going to be debated. It's all just going to be patted on the back. I'm afraid it's like a video game. If you had a video game and it was easy, no one would want to play it. The challenge is with the interactions and figuring out how to get things done. So if you've got a platform where everyone's the same as you, there's no controversy, and you know that interesting stuff isn't on there, I'm afraid investors and smart money and advertising money is going to be going onto the platforms where the action is, and it's just going to be the way. Now, where the action's going to go is there's going to be a new competing. There's loads of them. There's going to be Parler. There's going to be VK. Social media terms. There's loads that I don't even know about. In fact, actually, I'll make a prediction that in 5 years' time, the big free speech platform for social media won't be Facebook, and the big free speech platform for videos won't be YouTube. There'll be other ones, and we probably haven't even heard of them yet because they haven't even been created or registered. Someone's going to look at all the alternatives, and and there'll be something there. Myself and Craig we've put episode 1 of Cruise up on BitChute, but it is difficult to use, and that's not our fault. There's problems there. Others have experienced on BitChute. So there are these other platforms. What I'm saying is, there's a huge market for it, because when I see people, Alex Jones's banned video, they put him off of YouTube. Now he gets on his own platforms that he's created. Just his normal videos he does on a daily basis are up to about 100 to 150,000 views. Which is you know, more than a lot of people will get on a YouTube video, and that's
Yeah.
his own channel that he's done himself. So
Yeah, that
there is,
partition is where it's going to for sure.
yeah. So I'm going to make the following predictions. People are going to be leaving these platforms in droves in terms of their attention, and where attention goes, money flows. That's just the nature of corporate advertising. People will still
Yeah.
be, you know, you're not going to see articles like users have left Facebook. They're going to have their profiles open, but the actual time they're spending on those platforms is going to reduce dramatically over the
Yeah.
next 10 years, is prediction. Prediction number two is the same establishments that seek to censor will
Yeah.
try and then look at other forms of censorship. What? You've moved to other platforms. Let's try and censorship them as well. And I've got one
Yeah.
comment to make about that.
Yeah.
Everyone that is on Facebook going when they ban David Icke, well, they're a private platform, they can do what they want.
Uh-huh.
That argument must hold true if BitChute or anyone else goes, I like putting David's stuff on there, I want to do it. So you can't say that a platform can do what it's like in terms of banning someone, and then you say, well, you can't do what it like when you want to keep them. You've got to ban them now. So if you're going to stick your nose in and say that Facebook, not stick your nose in, but if you're of the opinion that Facebook's a private company, it can ban who it wants, well, any other private company, i.e. BitChute, that doesn't want to ban people, then shouldn't have to ban people by the same logic. So you're going to see that war develop, and then because it isn't just about censorship. These corporations, like the old mainstream media and everything like that,
Uh-huh.
they are the ones lobbying Facebook and
Uh-huh.
to and everything to,
And
well,
Twitter and
you know, it's a simple course of business as well, isn't
yeah.
it? They're eliminating the competition. Other news is of source and entertainment. That's their competition. They're going to go,
Yeah.
oh no, it's just all fake and false. You know, load of. Well, we won't go into it, but we
Yeah.
know, we know it is. So those are my predictions. You're going to see people leaving the platforms in droves. You're then going to see the establishment looking to chase them down where they are, and they're
Yeah.
not going to win in the long term. You're going to see massive corporate lawsuits and antitrust suits brought against them all over the world. And I think their share price already knows it, judging by what Facebook's done in the last year. So we're in the peak. We're in peak fascism on these social media
Yeah.
things. It's going to get worse. So
Yeah.
we're almost at the peak. And as that phrase in Star Wars goes, the tighter you grip, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. Those will slip through their fingers. They'll cause a rebellion, and that's where, as we know, all the interesting people are on the side of the rebellion and not the empire. So I
Mm.
see light at the end of the tunnel. We're just
Do you?
deep in that tunnel at the moment,
Yeah.
and it's going to
I'm.
get worse before it gets better. But the
Yeah.
more worse it gets, the brighter the light at the end of that tunnel becomes.
Well, I take solace from your optimism, Jim, and I appreciate it because I feel a greater depth of cynicism toward that behavior in terms of the partitioning of social media platforms, in terms of people's individual bubbles, as you described earlier, become more catered to their own particular needs and more are exclusive of other voices. And I think that whether they're departing to go to a different platform or are finding, as I think is the norm now, I'm seeing, Jim, and you might be yourself, the number of groups that have broken out on and within other platforms, other social media platforms, like groups on Facebook, for example, or even like private groups. I'm finding now are where more energetic, to describe it as, perhaps, conversation exists, and including onto text services like WhatsApp and Telegram and all these different more clandestine groups taking to ground. Basically, I see this. I see it part as a healthy response to online censorship, but I also see it as a success of the divide and conquer ruling body or overt control system that's useful against us. So the more people that they have speaking in smaller groups, partitioned from each other, the more advantageous it is for the divide and conquer methodology to be effective on our societies, and I think they've done it quite perfectly. I hope to see the optimism that you have of that leading to a more optimistic future, or even a beneficial future in response to that exact effect on people's lives. But I see it somewhat opposite to that at the minute. I see it as a further way, you know, whether it's like who's wearing masks against who isn't wearing masks, against, you know, this group against that group of protesters, or however they break us down or delineate us or make us feel like we're opposites, or that our opinions can't be merged, or that, you know, we're in some way constantly in competition with each other. As long as we're not like burning down City Hall, which is the benefit to things, you know, to come full circle, we can't make them focus on the protests of people who are like-minded in other countries, who have had enough of lockdown, who've had enough of mask mandates, who have had enough of government diktats. And at the same time, the backdrop against the government diktats is government incompetence and a mishandling of a crisis that, in the most polite way, can be called a debacle. You know, coming from these same voices. So I'm more pessimistic, Jim. But another reason I appreciate talking to you is that you sometimes see a wider picture than I do, that has a rosier finish to it.
It's going to get worse before it gets better, but it will get better. And all it's going to take is a few really key people. And I'm not predicting it will be these people. I'm saying people like Kanye West, Nigel Farage, Trump, some big players, or Joe Rogan, some big players either in the political or the entertainment arena that have had enough of having their speech stifled for whatever reason, or an Elon Musk or someone like that, and they go, here's a few of us, let's band together, we're creating our own social network and YouTube channel. Here's our, you know, it will be, they'll do it together. They'll do the social media channel, and they'll do an alternative to Facebook, they'll do an alternative to YouTube in one go. Bang, everyone will unite under that umbrella, and then the war will be on over the next 10 years for that to be co-opted and bought, and then the same censorship brought in. That, you know, you've always got the same censorship, and tyranny never stays the same. But everyone will be wise to it now. We're wise to the things in the game, that the New World Order's playbook, a lot of people are wise to it now. Even the people who don't believe in the New World Order are wise to some of the tricks in their playbook, even if they don't know why it's in the playbook or what the end goal is. They've seen that trick before. You know, so that's what you're going to see. All you need is a few key big time players to join together and say, enough is enough, we want free speech back, and they're going to build those platforms. You watch, they will come. There will be people that have had enough of this, and they will build something, and the rest of the people will follow. And you watch, there'll be a load of people going on there, and some of the Facebook people will come over from it, you know, and they'll try all their, oh, you can't say that, where's the report button? Well, there isn't one. It's all done for free speech, and it will be like the Wild West of social media thing. And of course, and then you get the second wave, because what happens then is you get all the corporations going, that's where the racists go. You don't want to go there. That's where the racists go.
That's already happened, hasn't it, with Parler and Gab?
And all that nonsense. And of course,
the maligning speeches,
what happens is,
and BitChute takes some of that.
All the people that are dumb enough to believe that, you don't want them on Facebook anyway. If they're not able to critically think, and they're the sort of
being
people that
dumb was a criteria, Jim, there'd be nobody on Facebook.
You don't want them. So it's a beautiful thing, the second wave, because the other people go, the people that think go, well, I don't think it's full of racists. Let's check it out. Oh, it's pretty good here. Yeah, there's a lunatic over there in the corner with some sort of swastika, but I've blocked him. Leave him alone. So all that you then have is you have your high information people with the ability to critically think on one big platform, and then you've got your others on your old platforms and stuff like that. Guess where the advertising money is going to go? It's only one way. And of course, what the beautiful thing is, the people that don't tend to be able to think critically are the ones that use this emotional blackmail and the advice of the herd, and they're not looking into things, and they call anyone that looks into it, a conspiracy theorist and those kind of things.
Mm,
Those sorts of people, you know, they don't tend to have that ability to interact with people in a nice, pleasant way. You see it all the
mm,
time, all the people that are on the low informational end of it, they don't have those debating skills. Think they're part of a team. They
mm.
don't. They don't ever source their stuff. They just viciously attack people. So I've seen the debates on this week, where people are just named. It just reverts to name calling when someone's presenting them
Mm,
with a fact that's contrary to the mainstream. So what I'm
yeah.
saying is, as well as being profitable and a place of free speech, where do you think you're going to have your most pleasant interactions with? The rest is just going to be this hive mind of vipers that all
Yeah.
want the virtual signal. And they're, the beauty of it is these people are the ones most susceptible to conformity, because
Oh.
they're the ones that have had all this stuff come into them, and they're not thinking for themselves, they're not debating it, they're not getting access to this information that they'd had if they controlled their emotions rather than tried to control other people's speech. So they're all going to be in
Mm,
this sort of state. It's going to be a beautiful thing, and the third wave will come when those people that are all there as conformity suddenly wake up and go, oh, everyone's taking the mickey at me for being on Facebook, and it's such a nasty place. Oh, I can't virtue signal anymore. Where are my virtue signaling people gone? And then they'll move as a result of it, and then they'll be able to see, oh, hang on, it's not full of racists at all, and then that will be the real death. But that comes in about 10 years' time.
yeah, I guess I just don't see the optimism of coming out of like, when, even if you speak of things in terms of like advertising dollars in the future, who are the advertising dollars? We're entering an economic model that involves the government, which I was actually quite surprised. I've spoken to you before after I've just, as I did last night or the night before, listened to a few hours of the BBC radio in the afternoon, Jim, and they even let
No
on.
wonder you're depressed.
Yeah, well, truly, absolutely. It was a real. I mean, it was like a personal fight to not be overtly brainwashed by just like, I can't even digress into the tendrils of constant nonsense of political promotion and just stuff that I don't even want to get in argument and conflict about. But regardless, that they let on a fellow who was like ex-director of a large pub chain in the UK, and it was, to their credit. I know that they don't let a lot of dissenting voices on, or are accused of not doing so. But this guy was adversarial, Jim, and he sounded like a guy with a gun to his head. It was definitely, he knew that they were never going to call him again for his information on how he felt the government should be handling the potential, this absurdity that we're now faced with, Jim, that the government even like has the audacity to think that they can, or it's their position to potentially withhold the opening of businesses, particularly in the hospitality industry, against the opening of schools. So if they're like playing the ends against the middle for the potential spike of cases of this, of COVID, as it is, or they won't even say that anymore, of coronaviruses, of the broad family of coronaviruses, that if they open schools, then they have to balance that by not opening pubs again, or closing potentially pubs that are already open. All this going on, and Jim, this guy, like, honestly, he seemed very distressed, and he seemed very knowledgeable in the industry. And he told them point blank that he just couldn't believe that the government for a moment thought that hospitality industries were something that could be turned off and on like a switch. And they countered him. They said, "Why do you say that?" And he said, because staff needs to be hired, and they're human beings, and they have lives, and you can't just like decide to open on Tuesday if you haven't bought food on the Friday, and if you don't know how long you're going to be open for, you don't know how much booze you're going to need to buy, and you don't know how much food you're going to need to buy, and you might not at that point even have staff that you haven't trained up. So you're having to do all these things, and this is on top of, like, there's now new fees that because of the coronavirus, Jim, because of this, new state of affairs, this new normal, there's actually new tariffs that businesses are having to pay from like the point as we're at right now, from like a point of zero interest, of zero income, right? So just like a new fee that's necessary to deal with admin on something that's already like fully arrested their ability to make money. So this guy was just like he seemed really, they cut him off, to be fair, like to be fair, not to anybody, but they certainly weren't fair to him, but they did cut him off, Jim, and it didn't seem like a ceremonial ending to the conversation. They actually, I recall they said your name, blah blah blah, we've spoken to you before, good day, or what. I don't even think they said good day, Jim. It was just like, it was really a hideous insight. And this guy was just like, I don't know who they think they are or what they think they can do, that they can just like, oh, maybe we'll open pubs, and but we might not, but we haven't decided. We'll see what August 15th brings, and then we'll decide whether or not something opens at the end of September. Oh, but if it doesn't, then we'll just open it maybe Christmas, or maybe it won't open until January or whatever. But whatever, wear a mask until the vaccine comes, and everything will be, fine in your life. And it's just like, it's not going to be fine in our lives, Jim. This is the point that I'm making, that we're in a place where the furloughs are starting to be withdrawn. Some of the new furloughs, you and I have talked about this before, where I know that you have positive feelings towards how the government's been paying people to keep afloat in this downturn, but while at the same time there's no light in the tunnel on the horizon. There's no like suggestion that things are going to be back in any sense of a new normalcy, so or beyond a new normalcy. So we're in this place where there's going to be a mountain of unemployment ahead of us, of businesses that won't be able to weather this storm. And again, through listening to mainstream radio over the last couple of days, I was able to take in that, there's other people in business sectors that agree similarly, that there's only so much, punch that a ma and pa operation can take. And this is, part of this wider crime that's being committed against us, Jim. Part of this, the wider effect is that, only certain businesses will be able to weather this downturn. Only certain ones will be able to implement the new, the plexiglass perspex shields between their tables, and, be able to invest in the new equipment, to be able to have different ordering systems, so there's not as much interaction with the customer. All of these things implemented are just like putting a new percentage of businesses that will not be able to recover from this. And these are what we're talking about. You and I are now talking about who's going to invest. This is a part of the issue that we're already finding with social media, that the people who are invested in social media, you can look on Twitter now, it's pharmaceutical companies, right? So they're also heavily invested in the mainstream media companies, massively, including the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation within the BBC Trust itself, Jim. So there's like all these different investments of advertising that exist in our media as we speak of it today, but like there's no future of ma and pa organizations or even medium-sized businesses having any amount of affluence to be able to invest in a more just media environment or social media conversation. So there's no like independent businesses that are going to flourish from this and suddenly have like disposable capital to have themselves invested in more equitable social media platforms. I don't see that coming. I see a further tightening of screws from a more limited source of conversation or opinion, and people just having to sort of suck it up, or as we're finding, just not be represented on social media, which I, again, pessimistically don't feel that our future is bright when you see the people that we appreciate and enjoy watching ourselves are being deplatformed left, right, and center, and are too numerous to even talk about.
Yeah, but there's articles like this: BBC shamed in brutal Ofcom report as viewers accuse Beeb of bias in the news. This is from Friday, the 31st of July. The
Yeah.
BBC is accused of biased news reporting and failing to stay relevant to younger viewers, according to a damning Ofcom report. Researchers found some BBC viewers believe the corporation fails to report news impartially and feels the corporation is struggling to stay relevant, especially to younger audiences. So,
It could
this is
only
what
be funnier if it was coming from Ofcom.
yeah, but the key thing is, well, I've read it out on this show before. Look at
Yeah.
the numbers of the BBC is hemorrhaging licensed viewers.
Yes.
Remember, we've talked about this before, and I said it's not all because people have got Netflix, and a lot of people just go and buy Netflix and keep the TV on, don't they? So
Yeah.
people, in order for those licenses to drop, someone has got to go. I do not want to watch that
Yeah.
anymore. So it's not just people, but usually people buying Netflix keep it. People that are
Yeah.
actually switching this stuff off. I know I haven't watched their stuff in 10 years.
Yeah.
So, and what I'm
I
saying is
sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
that
Sorry.
people are gonna, just as people are seeing that on the BBC,
Yeah.
the same critical thinkers, the
Yeah.
high informationally informed, they're
Yeah.
going to see the same things on Facebook and YouTube, and they probably already have. They're just wondering
Probably.
where the next platform to jump off to is.
Yeah.
Believe me, when someone comes along, that there is a huge gap for a social media platform, an alternative to YouTube, and a new political party, especially in Britain. There is a whole gaping hole there for a load of voters who do not believe in any of these governments.
Yeah.
We've never given a chance to vote against the bank bailout. We've not been given any
Yeah.
party that says we're not going to go with the official government's version of the coronavirus. We're going to hold
Yeah.
them to account. We're going to go down a Swedish model. We're not going to mandate masks. There isn't a political alternative to that. When
Yeah.
there is,
Yeah.
you will find these things come hand in hand, because you know that those sorts of new political beliefs are going to be censored on social media. It will all come in the next 10 years. I don't know who, by, or where,
Yeah.
but I can't see it not happening. Is that the free speech politicians, the free speech entertainers, and the free speech public want to come together to do something different with especially Britain. And I think you'll also see that movement around the world. I don't know
Yeah.
whether it's going to be in the form of a new political party, or they're going to try and take back and bring the old political party. The Liberals aren't liberal anymore. The
No.
Conservatives aren't conserving. They destroy the NHS. And Labour, since when has a knighted lord spoken for the unions? All three parties are going to have grassroots problems.
Yeah.
And you're going to see, you've got the grassroots problems in the three parties. You've got the load of what I call political atheists who don't belong to any party, like myself. When something comes along to cater for those people, i.e., those who are not non-conspiracy minded. Well, I'm not talking about all believe in every conspiracy theory, but they're just open-minded to the idea that government and corporations are in bed together, and they've created this big corporate government entity that works for
Fascism.
yeah, as
Fascism.
Mussolini defined it, as the merger of state and corporate powers, isn't he? So when these people when the enemies of this united octopus of fascism unite, you're going to see something beautiful. I don't know when,
Well,
how, who, but it
yeah.
will happen in the next 10 years.
I think
So
you're already seeing it in many evidences in terms of social and political unrest. But I also see this, Jim, unlike yourself, as seeing a light at the end of a tunnel. I see those voices that you're talking about, and those who are disgruntled and yearning to find somewhere else for their ideas to take traction or to be in conversation with others. I see those people being eliminated, basically. I also see this part and parcel with, the conversation beginning with the BBC losing how many, what do I call them, license fee payers, yearly. And over the last like 5 years, it's been quite exponential in loss of numbers there. But I see that in terms of for some similar parallel purposes, how the Tory government I don't want to get factionalized between whites and reds or blues and yellows or any like political breakdowns that separate us. I see any investment in any of the main political parties as a betrayal of your intelligence to your fellow persons. But regardless, how the Tory party can afford to essentially massacre its voter base, its majority population base that was pro, voting for them. And I see that similarly with the BBC in losing their viewership, that they just don't care anymore, Jim. I see this as like the looting in the end times, because the unrest that I'm talking about, or the what we've seen across the States, and we'll begin to see more in Europe, I'm sure, in terms of riots and lack of respect for federal authority as it is in the States at the minute. And right now there's talk, of course, of either the upcoming American election being postponed or in some way delayed potentially. So there's all sorts of, we're in a tinderbox situation of all of the issues that you and I talk about, of the deplatforming of alternative voices on social media, of future media platforms to find voices for these different people. But, each time it gets recompartmentalized, as you know, Jim, there's like, now there's a smaller group of them talking to less people over here, and they're, okay, now a few of them aren't allowed to be there, so they got to go over here, and there's now a few of them that get to talk to even less people, and there's like a partition divide between all. Before you get into the political opinions, you're already into the physical separation of these voices in society. And again, if I can bring up, those who are showing themselves as compliant to, and slavishly so, the government's diktats in wearing their masks publicly, are now being put in a more and more confrontational situation with those who wish to present their own personal rights to not have to breathe through a rag on their face while they're out on a hot sunny day. And I say that not talking about confined spaces or, where there's a respect to other people's immediate environment. I'm talking about people screaming at each other on the street, or on a boardwalk near the beach, or in these sorts of settings where there's been an empowerment of people who are committed to government demands, having confrontational moments with people who just want to exercise their personal rights or freedoms. So this is all part of the same for me, Jim. That's what we're headed towards, is global conflagration. There's no other way really to look at it. You look at the division, certainly in the States, and I've said this my entire life, whether it's growing up next to the Americans or like being acutely interested in their political scene at all times, because it's basically the powder keg for the globe in terms of what America does, we're all going to feel. And I've always said that the biggest thing that we have to worry about is internal conflict in America. And the idea that that's either not going to happen or isn't going to continue to happen on the present course that it's been on is just, I don't see a way out of that, Jim, terrifyingly. I see the people that we're talking about fictionally that will then join social media platforms that are yet to be invented in the future. I see those people as being eradicated. I see the actual, like, the worst suppositions or accusations of what the New World Order's goals and plans for us are, and we can get into the particulars of how they're addressed or presented. I see us as the useful or useless eaters. It would be nice if we were useful eaters, but as we're often described, the great unwashed, as being useless eaters, I do not see us having a future in the projected political goals.
That's their goal for sure, but I don't think they're going to get away with it. For the simple reason,
okay, yeah.
Look at, no, I agree they'll try, but I think they'll fail.
They're trying really hard.
Yeah, but it's things like this that that give me hope. We've covered this ad nauseum, but again, I just wanted to hammer it home to our audience. This is by Forbes. This is the 26th of July. So in
Yeah,
case you're thinking you're listening to a cruise rerun from the
yeah,
first early days, you're not.
yeah.
CDC says possibly less than half of positive antibody tests are correct. In updated guidance posted on its website over the weekend, the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention acknowledged an inability to accurately determine if individuals had been infected with COVID-19 via antibody tests. If the test is used in a population where prevalence is low, it's possible that less than half of those testing positive will truly have antibodies. So, and I just want to give this Orange County inflated
Yes.
its coronavirus test numbers by mistakenly including antibody tests, officials say. So the ones that we can't be sure about, this is from the 3rd of July, the
Yeah,
total number of COVID-19 tests conducted in Orange County, this is by MSN, was
yeah.
mistakenly inflated for more than a month, beginning in late April when data released to the public, an error that may have painted a rosier picture of the pandemic than the reality in that region. So all in all, we're saying that all these tests are
Unreliable.
dodgy. Yeah,
Yeah.
um, so I
But they're
think
all being used to, hit you with the fear cagoule, aren't they?
yes, but you remember we're living in a country that
Sorry,
was one of
cudgel,
the few.
cudgel,
Yeah,
cudgel. A cagoule's like a raincoat, isn't
I'm
it? to
not
be
sure.
to be bludgeoned with a cagoule would be quite nice, actually.
Give it to the couples that are working in the glory holes. That could be
Yes.
handy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't. They've really pissed off those doctors this week. They've really pissed
Right.
off their glass line thing, and that's respected scientists that you can't really. The, this the tentacles of tyranny coming from this huge octopus are pissing
Yeah.
off so many enemies that and it's trying deliberately to keep those enemies distanced in little pockets, like you say. But it is
Mm.
inevitable that those pockets of resistance will form greater resistance somewhere at some time,
Yeah.
and they're going to do something with these numbers.
I
That
agree.
was MSN reporting from the Los Angeles Times.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
things will get better, Craig, and to our listeners as well. I'm convinced things will get better, and government fucks everything up. So I don't see why it wouldn't fuck up our extermination, just as it fucks up.
Ah, yeah.
You
Well,
know,
unfortunately, it's the number of people that help. It can't be underestimated, the power of those who have been put in a fearful mind to
of
and
course,
clearly have been that contagion of fear and emotional response rather than
but there are so many people
calculated.
that can still think for themselves
Yeah,
that all it takes is one of their loved ones to be whisked away to some detention centre like you've just described,
yeah,
and that will be a red pill inserted as a suppository up that person. Like, oh,
yeah,
they're all conspiracy, they're all nuts, they're all nuts, they're all nuts.
yeah.
No, they're not. And for every one but like that, they'll be good, take my relative to the camp. It's for my own good. I think they had a cough once back 10 years ago. I don't want to catch COVID. There'll be those people as well. But you know,
I think a good example to counter that is those who are vaccine injured families. They're widely maligned and mocked in society, and they're consistently in revealing documentary are a significant number of affected people. But you can see by their treatment in the media, and increasingly so recently, that they are a very marginalized group, and as more and more of the business of pharma takes over the media, we can expect to see more of that. And I don't see how that won't work against similarly minded people who are suspicious of the official narrative of COVID as it is, Jim. It's another example for me of how effective they can be against their enemies, and that's what we're faced with. We're faced
remember
with.
you're living in Britain, which had one of the highest rates of obedience for lockdown. It's what I would
Yeah,
call one of the bastions of the banking pharmaceutical industry, and
yeah,
we've got a big media controlled by the banking and the
Yeah.
pharmaceutical industry. Therefore, we've got a big nation of people watching it, programmed by it.
Yeah.
People around the world are not as hesitant to question authority, and by authority I mean banks and pharmaceuticals and governments.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is there are people around the world that question more than Britain,
Yeah.
and you must know that you've travelled around a bit. Britain is one of the countries the most that's like, it's weird, isn't it? I hate the Tories, but I'm going to trust everything they say. Oh no, I don't believe all the television, everything like that, but I'm going to trust
Yeah.
everything they say about COVID. You
Yeah.
know, oh no, of
Utterly
course
strange, Jim.
of course governments and corporations are against our best interests.
But not this time.
Not this time though. And in fact, anyone that points it out, I'm gonna
Crazy.
call them nuts.
Yeah.
There's only so long that kind of low informationally informed mindset can continue under times of stress, especially if what you see coming comes to fruition, where it gets physical. There's only so long it can go down that road. So don't lose heart.
Yeah.
Britain will be one of the main bastions of this conglomerate, this corporate conglomerate. It will be one of their strongholds forever because of they've got such control over the media and so many people watch it, stuff like that. But there will be places around the world that aren't, and when these places have free speech, you have free trade, because people don't really want to invest in a country where you think the government can come along at any moment with the stroke of a wand and go, that's it now, like you were saying, for the pub industry, for example, or anything like that. Who's going to be investing in pubs in the UK now? Okay, what's our business mandate? Well, we don't know if you're even allowed to be opened yet. Okay, what's that mandate on? Well, we're not sure, really. Yeah. So wherever you get freedom, you get prosperity. And so Britain is going to be one of the least free places in terms of speech and corporate control from what we can see under this regime that's coming. Well, it's going to be one of the poorest, and you're going to get, again, smart money are going to go where the money goes. And in essence, it's going to be turning into one of the information no-go areas, the information no investment areas. You can see, I don't want to name any parts of Britain, but you can see parts of Britain where people just don't invest in it anymore. Well, that's going to happen on an international level, and Britain's going to be one of the dumps. It's going to be one of the dives. It's going to be one of the neglected places, and all that comes with it. And so, but there's going to be opportunities to be able to,
blossom within that.
Move, blossom. Yeah, there are always going to be ways that you can, if you're high informationally informed, you can stay ahead of the curve. But the main point I wanted to get to the fact was you're in one of the tightest controlled places on earth in terms of thought prisons, in terms of I don't want to open box number 2 because box number 1 has convinced me that box number 2 is bad, and I trust box number 1. Well, I don't trust box number 1, but I'm going to trust it this time. That's what I mean. I'm not being melodramatic or saying like that, because there are many, many places free that Britain is more free than. We have many more rights than other parts of the world or anything like that. So I'm not knocking my own country. I'm talking mainly in the public mindset to go, I'm going to do my own research because I don't believe what the mainstream media is telling me. That's all I'm talking about there. We are in one of the biggest, controlled information places on earth in Britain, and it shows when you talk to people in the street, and it showed in the obedience, and it showed in, while other people were protesting around the world about the lockdown, people in Britain were protesting that the lockdown should go longer. So don't be disheartened living in this country. There's still some testosterone in this country left, and for anyone that thinks that's a sexist remark, there's still some estrogen in this country left. Whatever it is, male or female hormone that wants to freedom, that wants to just get on with their neighbour of all races, religions, colours and creeds. Just, I'll give you freedom, you give me freedom, we'll mind our own business, we'll have some fun. There's still a lot of that spirit left in this country. It's just being downtrodden at the moment, and more importantly, there's still that spirit in other parts of the world. So don't let the British media, don't go listening to the BBC anymore, Craig.
It was a pretty depressing few hours, I can tell you.
Yeah.
It's pretty
So
embarrassing.
here's something to cheer you up. Only joking.
Please.
It's an article from the Telegraph. If I could just get rid of the advert button, that says lockdown has killed 21,000 people. Data suggests. This is the 29th of
Jim, I can't
July.
interrupt. I was
Lastly,
thinking when you were speaking earlier there that I've heard or even viewed in the last few days again arguments, conversations on Facebook where people still. This is the issue that like the latent reformed information doesn't tend to be the current conversation, as you and I both know. That there are still people who are blatantly arguing that the virus has killed all of these people. And that's why, again, all of these new and latest diktats, including maybe gloves and goggles and all this ridiculousness, might have application because so many people have been killed by COVID-19. And it's just a fiction. That's like related deaths. It's all part of a subterfuge to take away from the reality that government action, that actual diktats taken in response to the supposed COVID-19 threat are what has killed all of these people. Actually, the actual process of lockdown, the actual removal from social networks of vulnerable people has killed them. It may only be in the number that Jim just said, in the 21,000s. I reckon it's higher. But the idea that those deaths can be in any way attributed to any type of virus, upper, lower respiratory tract infection, anything of that nature, is a complete subterfuge to take blame away from malfeasance in office, actual criminality. And it's just astonishing to me, as I said, Jim, at the beginning, that this mention that you still see people arguing like, oh, well, you know, if you don't want to wear your mask, that's fine, but I'll do it for the 92 million deaths that the government says are because of this virus. You know, whatever what the number's at right now, Jim, what is it, 60,000 or 58,000 or 49,500, whatever ridiculous number that they have already admitted is unstable because of miscounts and overcounts and, you know, infrequent counts and bad counts and wrong counts and all of the things that are admitted to, but actually have presented a much higher number of deaths attributed to something that it's only tangentially, in fact, overlapping timing-wise related to. And even, as you and I both know, interestingly, isn't even a high number of deaths in its own totality for a 5-year average, which is in its own way, like, you know, a mockery of what we're talking about. So it frustrates me when I hear things like that, Jim, of the, you know, the 21,000 related deaths. It's just like, no, you got to separate people who wouldn't have died if the government told them that their relatives could no longer visit them in old folks' homes. Those people, you know, people who would have gone in and got their cancer treatments sooner, would have got their diagnoses for their cancer treatment sooner, would have decided rather than die at home of a heart attack that was a pain in their chest for 2 weeks, would have gone to the hospital and had perhaps a treatable heart condition, you know, something that they could still be alive today through intervention. That's all not considered in this, and I have trouble swallowing that, Jim. Sorry to interrupt.
that's a good point, Craig. Well, you need cheering up. So for our
Well,
last
and
two
again, it's, you know,
stories,
it's that people still live in the mindset of like how it used to be, Jim. They're not all like you are current on the information that you're bringing in. They're not looking for new information each week and each day to recalculate their own understanding of this entire, you know, situation. They're just like holding on to a number that scared them in April and then haven't adjusted their own calculations in their mind for how their emotional state should be directed at the government rather than at the virus.
yeah, but that's what I'm talking about earlier. Those are the sort of people that are going to be left on Facebook, and those are the sort of people who are going to be going, you know, occasionally to pubs, and people are going to go, I don't want to talk to that person. They're boring. They're just rabbiting stuff that I knew was wrong 2 months ago. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
the future is bright because people like you and I will not want to be around those people. Yeah. And our listeners of this podcast are not going to be one around those people, and advertisers are not going to want to bother spending their money to those people, trying to get through them. So a couple of articles here to cheer you up, we're going to, our
Yay.
last two stories of today, strippers
Alligators
and
on
aliens.
meth? Come on.
Hey, I'll try and dig out some more alligator stories.
Mm.
No, this is strippers and aliens. The first one from the Mail Online. So, unmasked and stripped bare, coronavirus conspiracy theorist Eve Black, who filmed herself driving through a police blockade, is a topless waitress and raunchy stripper who attends swingers parties.
Ooh.
So apparently in Australia, this is an article from the 31st of July, there is a high-profile conspiracy theorist called Eve Black, who has been exposed as a topless waitress and stripper who has performed at swingers parties. Black, whose real name is Eve LeBreau, faces fines of up to $10,000 for filming herself driving through a police checkpoint in defiance of COVID lockdown laws. The 28-year-old became a national disgrace after performing the stunt and uploading the video to Facebook, where she was largely slammed. But it is her night job as a Melbourne stripper that has now caught the nation's attention. And for any of our male or lesbian listeners, the articles are on the descriptions or the comment section. There's some rather nice,
zesty.
As Kenny Everett would say, all done in the best possible taste. Pictures of Eve there, so you can see them for yourselves. But like I said, you know,
attacking the morality, Jim. It's just embarrassing to try and attack on that level. You know, to publicly shame. That's all. You know, all this is so geared towards that. It's hideous.
So our final article here tonight. Oh, and before I do that, I want to do our shouts because they do tie into
what the government's doing, shutting down Melbourne again, is just like how many articles do you and I have to read out, Jim? How many different studies do we have to see that have proven definitively that lockdown causes more deaths than not, that the cure is worse than the disease regarding lockdown and the destruction of people's lives through other means as a way to fight a largely indifferent to masks and lockdown virus that moved similarly through all models of studies of different societies where it did move in. It seemed that the lockdown had very little effect in any of these studies, but still on presses Australia, on presses Melbourne, against all logical reasoning. They're just it's like watching a country get taken over. I feel sorry for Australians when I read news out of their country, Jim.
Yeah. So shout out to Chris. Thanks for liking and sharing the podcast. On episode 14, he goes, I go with Craig on the cube. Is it an unidentified flying object? Exactly. And also, there is not a single chance in creation mankind is putting cubes of that size and coming out of the sun. What? It's a giant balloon like that creature on the Twilight Zone turned out to be. No, it's one of the most amazing stories I've heard as well. Wonderful Craig's rant against psycho, COVID, hypnotic, zombified gridmeisters. He loved your rant on that. All I would say, of course, you know, you can't build something on Earth that's 10 times the size of Earth. I did leave out the fact that there is the possibility that it could have been built on space stations.
Yeah, they didn't make that at Belfast locks, did they? That wasn't.
And also, there is, you know, we still aren't sure about the scale. We honestly don't know. And speaking of which, that's our final. We don't know about the scale. And because whenever you're taking pictures of anything like it's all black or it's all white, i.e. it's black background of space or the white background of article we're going to say tonight, it's difficult to get to scale. But I will read out the article for you, just bearing in mind that I would like to know how that they measured the scale. That's all.
Sure.
And that might well turn out they go, they show me something. And I go, yeah, that's scientifically sound. I think it's absolutely what you say, but it might not be. So here we are. This is published on Monday, the 3rd of August. So today, although I could have sworn I got this a couple of days ago.
Might be updated.
But there you go. Yeah, well, no, it says published and then updated next to it, both on the same day. But who knows?
Could be your time machine again. Could be how you're so good at predicting the future. You're in it.
Well, we shall. Well, I had one prediction that came true within an hour.
Yeah.
The next one about the Facebook things, I've given myself a 10-year frame, haven't I? We'll see. A lot could change, and of course I could change it before then. That's the beauty of predictions, isn't it? So, giant aliens spotted in Antarctica with entrance into mountains. Claim. Alien hunters believe they have spotted a giant extraterrestrial in Antarctica, which is at least 20 meters tall. This is by Sean Martin. The existence of aliens continues to be debated, but one conspiracy theorist believes he has the proof. Said proof comes in the form of an apparent giant alien found on the slopes in Antarctica using Google Earth. Near to the apparent giant is what appears to be a doorway, which, according to prominent alien hunter Scott C. Waring, is 22 meters high. That seems to fit well. Mr. Waring wrote on his blog ET database, I found a giant figure in Antarctica today, and it's not far from a giant entrance to a cave opening. New Google ruler says this figure is 20 meters tall. Google ruler also says that the entrance to the cave is 22 meters tall. Now, we all know what software problems are like. Also, how do we know that isn't some bloke that's just got a job in a circus and he's gone, I need somewhere to practice my stilts where I'm not going to fall on anyone. I know, I go to Antarctica. I'm being ridiculous here, but what I'm saying is just because you see something that claims to be 20 meters tall doesn't mean it's an alien. It could be a really tall bloke, or you might have a problem with Google ruler or something like that. Now, I have listened to the old Admiral Byrd expedition to Antarctica. I must say, I didn't, he seemed, it's something important, but I listened to it. All the conspiracy theorists say, listen to it. I didn't really see or hear anything that would allude to anything other than an interesting expedition, probably that was a few things covered up for corporate reasons and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't see any evidence of alien bases or anything like that. But I have heard rumours of pyramids and all that kind of stuff in Antarctica, but I've yet to see any sort of mainstream sources on that. So maybe I'll do that next week. But there you go. Those are, as you know, I'm very skeptical of the alien thing, but I'm not closed-minded. If someone
there's just nothing, including Admiral Byrd's take on it, Jim. There's just nothing regarding Antarctica for the modern human to not be suspicious of. The fact that you and I aren't allowed to go there is the first thing to be hyper suspicious of. The collusion of great powers over the years to make sure that people like you and I can't go there is another thing to be suspicious of. The Nazis, as you're aware, complete fixation with certain geographical regions of Antarctica is another great reason to be hyper suspicious of what might be going on there now in terms of, as you and I both know through Paperclip and other unmentioned operations, the transference of power between the Nazis and the presumed victorious allies at the end of World War II. That's a reason to be hyper suspicious of what's going on in Antarctica. And it's seemingly, what's the other one that happened just recently where you've had some high profile politicians need to be taken down for observatory reasons, presumably at crucial times in the election cycle in the States, down to Antarctica. Another reason to wonder, like, what's going on in Antarctica? What is going on? A, that we can't know about, and B, that we're not allowed to find out for ourselves. It's, it's, again, none of these things say that it's a 20-meter high alien making his own, so he doesn't have to duck, presumably, Jim, 22-meter high door in the side of a mountain that I guess he just plays in while people are watching Google Earth and other people weren't able to see him. 20, I think you and I both know 20 meters in Google Earth is like, that's a pretty big thing. That's like, that's a few vehicles worth of like observable material, as it were. So, there's all these kind of and nothing that I've said about the suspicions you should have regarding Antarctica mean that, like, this snow creature with his own custom door exists or is in any way like a creation of anything other than our fantasy mind. But the fact that you have any suspicious thoughts or creative answers for yourself or conspiratorial thoughts regarding Antarctica are completely legitimate and understandable in context of what we're allowed to know about the place.
So finally, I'll just put this on here. This is by CBS News. An Antarctic mountain with a unique pyramid-like shape is suddenly
Yeah.
internet famous, with countless theorists contemplating its origin. Some are wondering whether an ancient civilization created a rocky pyramidal structure, and others are pointing toward outer space, speculating about the involvement of aliens. But Occam's razor, the idea that the simplest explanation is usually the right one, points to a far more mundane cause. Those
Which
steep
is,
pyramid-like sides are
yeah.
likely the work of hundreds of millions of years of erosion, experts
Oh,
told Live Science. So,
Jim, I got to interrupt you. How ridiculous is it to propose that Occam's razor refers to the simplest explanation for something, when quite clearly the simplest explanation for things would be, well, there's pyramids all over God's green earth in every other continent. So why wouldn't there be pyramids in Antarctica? It's just like an entire, again, a complete subterfuge move of mainstream presumption of creating our reality for us by proposing utterly the most ridiculous explanation for what looks like a pyramid on another part of the earth that is literally, if you look into it at all, from covetous China of its own pyramids to whether it's Egypt or whether it's Central South America, the world festooned literally with pyramids before you even get into the debated ones in Bosnia and beyond. Why wouldn't there be a pyramid also on Antarctica? It's just utterly maniacal and ridiculous to assume otherwise. But that's what they do so blatantly. Well, it wouldn't likely be one of them pyramids that's everywhere else in the world. It's just like, it's amazing that they can say this crap out loud and not literally be laughed off the whatever pedestal they've been given a voice for.
this article that I'm reading out
Yeah,
was from 2016. So for me, it's
sure.
amazing that more work hasn't been done to, hey, do you think it really was the wind or whether it is a pyramid? Ah, it's probably the wind. Don't worry about it. And we're now 4 years later. So that
Still no
demands,
answers.
yeah, that demands some explanation from me. But as ever,
Yeah.
well, put it this way, I trust the CBS and the mainstream media
Ah!
just as much as I trust alien hunter Scott C. Waring, which is, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but I really do need more evidence to believe what
More.
of them are telling me. That's
Totally.
where I sit. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. They've said nothing by saying a whole bunch.
So there's questions there. It's an interesting place
That's great.
on the Earth, isn't it? So that brings us to a close for episode 19. We're going to be
Jim,
entering
we're on
our
the verge of 20. We're
yes.
on the verge of 20.
Well, we are
20.
already if you count our special about Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, true, true that. But officially 20 weeks coming up. So we've got to be excited about that.
Yeah, I've been enjoying the podcast and been enjoying the feedback that our listeners have given us as well. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah,
Any
totally.
so please like on Facebook, please
Please,
subscribe on YouTube, please share them on
please.
social media. Oh, a big thank you to Martina for sharing our YouTube as well, and I think
Nice.
it liked by a lady who was into all the alien stuff. So maybe we'll get her when we get our tech sorted. We'll get her on the show for her Antarctica. But any closing comments, Craig, about
No, just
episode
thanks for
19?
watching as far as you have. Good luck and all that. Prosper in the future. I hope things turn better for us. I hope at some point there's something more optimistic to talk about next week, and look forward to that.
Cool. Cheers.